Hi students, I welcome you all to today's English class. In today's class, we will learn about the poem To the Foot from Its Child by Pablo Neruda. Neruda won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. He became known as a poet while he was still a teenager. He wrote a variety of styles including surrealistic poems, historical epics, political manifestos, a prose autobiography, and charged love poems such as the ones in his 1924 collection, 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. Neruda's poetry is known for its surrealism, that is, the attempt to develop into the unconscious mind and produce a dreamlike work that reveals the surreal truth or the truth beyond reality. Neruda made extensive use of metaphor since he felt that it was only through metaphor, not rational analysis and argument, that the mystery of the world could be relevant and revealed to everyone. In the present poem, To the Foot from Its Child, though the metaphor of a foot that has to live in a shoe, Neruda points out that it is our isolation during our lifetimes that is the sad fact of life and not death. An individual passes through the whole of his life without being able to share his dream with others or realize them or without being able to achieve them. Now, the poem is about a child's foot which has various dreams when it is small. So, the child's foot still doesn't know it is a foot and it wants to be a butterfly or an apple. So, this child is still unaware about the reality of its life, and, and in its innocence, it just goes on dreaming to fly like a butterfly, or it desires to be like the bulging apple, or it desires to be something else because it is still a child and is not aware about the hardships of life. So when we go to a little child and ask a child about its aim, it would say that I would want to be a doctor one day, and the next day it says that I would want to be a teacher, and the next day it says that I'm happy being the robber stealing stuff, or I love to be a police. So a child is very innocent, not knowing the realities of life. And the child foot, which has various dreams, gradually understands that it cannot achieve any of them, but it is condemned to live in a shoe like a prisoner separated from its fellow. So, but later, the glass and the stones, the streets, the stairs, and the roads of the hard earth manage to teach the foot that it cannot fly, that it cannot be a round fruit on a branch, and then the child's foot was downcast, fell in battle, was a prisoner, condemned to live in a shoe. So gradually it can understand that it cannot achieve any of its dream because it is condemned to live in a shoe like a prisoner, separated from the others. It slowly gets used to the dark world of the shoe and moves around life like a blind man. Over a period of time, the soft nails of the foot become hard and the tiny petal toes of the foot take on a form of eyeless reptiles with triangular head like worms. So here we can see that Neruda rightly makes his observation in the beginning of the poem that the child is not aware of the reality but dreams to be a butterfly or an apple. Then the passage of time exposes the foot to such hardship of life that it loses the battle and remains condemned to live in the shoe. Here, Neruda shows how an individual is conditioned by the society. The foot then starts to understand its limits and live accordingly, like a blind man out of touch with his fellows. As the foot grows, the soft aspect starts to change and grow hard. Separated from its fellow, it slowly gets used to the dark world of the shoe and moves around like a blind man. Over a period of time, the soft nails of the foot become hard and the tiny petal toes of the child take on the form of eyeless reptiles with triangular heads like worms. They become coarse as it grows and becomes big. The foot, uh, the blind thing, gets involved in a mechanical act of walking without respite, that is, without rest, hour after hour. Little by little, without light, it went about knowing the world in its own way, without knowing the other foot, bent upon the exploring life like a blind man. So those soft nails, that clusters of crystal hardened itself, became an optic thing of hard horn, and the child's little petals flattened, lost their balance, took the shape of eyeless reptiles of the worm's triangular head, and they became colossus covered with tiny, deathly volcanoes. But this blind man walked without pause, without stopping, hour after hour, one foot and the other foot, now man's or the women's, up, down, through the fields, the mines, the warehouses, and the offices, back, out, in, and forth. This foot, with its shoe, had barely the time to be in love or in dreams. It walked, they walked, until the whole body stopped. So here we can see, however, when uh, the foot is unaware that it is no longer a foot, in its innocence and ignorance, it wonders whether it is being buried so that it can fly like a butterfly or become an apple. So here we need to understand that in some time the soft nails of the foot became very hard and the tiny petal toes of the child now is taken forms of eyeless reptiles with triangular head like worms. Now this mechanical act of walking without respite, hour after hour, the foot never rests in love or sleep. It walks until the whole man chooses to stop, that is, die, and then descends into the grave with the dead man. However, even then, the foot is unaware that it is no longer a foot. In the innocence or ignorance, it wonders whether it is being buried so that it can fly like a butterfly or become an apple. Here, the foot symbolizes a human being who has to move forward, reach many places in his life, but when the foot itself is confined to being a prisoner in a shoe and moving around like a blind thing, the human being cannot achieve much. And then It went down into the earth and knew nothing because all of everything was dark there, and it did not know it was no longer a foot, or if they had buried it so it could fly, or so it could become an apple. So very soon his life becomes mechanical, moving up and down, to and fro restlessly. He never stops even for love or sleep. He stops only when he dies. And even then, he will be wondering whether he is dying so that he can realize his dream in the next life. Basically, the poem talks about the loneliness of man who cannot share his dreams or his desires or achieve them in his lifetime, because as he grows, he is expected to perform many roles and duties and responsibilities that are totally different from his dreams. One's whole life becomes mechanical and meaningless without any opportunity to think about one's dreams or share them with others. The foot has had such a life without any rest, without any breaks. It is alone, and it only stops when it dies. It continues to dream beyond its confines even when it is buried. So, in other words, society overpowers an individual from immense possibilities of life. So even when the man is buried, the soul thinks that whether along with his body all his dreams are buried, or am I buried here so that I can dream again, so that I can have another chance to live all my dreams, at least after my death. So this is what the entire poem here talks about. Now, Neruda says uh, about loneliness of man who cannot share his dream or achieve them in his lifetime because he grows, uh, he is expected to perform many roles and duties that are totally different from his dreams. So, with this, we conclude this poem. I hope you were able to understand the poem.